You have a birthday coming up. Yossi's birthday was on Yud Aleph Shvat. Shabbat Shira was his Shabbat Bar Mitzvah. And he congratulated Yossi, and that was a week before he was nifter, so I think it was a zchut lekabel et habrachot shel Eugene. I also wanted to say that our children loved Eugene and Ethel as if they were their uncle and aunt, and the day when we heard the news, so our three sons came over. It was something spontaneous. They came over that night and they sat with one of our grandsons, and they sat with Yossi and they said, let's learn Mishnayot Leilui Nishmato. It was something, it came so naturally because we looked at Eugene and Ethel as a very close part of our family. We were privileged to spend Shabbatot and holidays together, both in the years when we were in the States and also all those visits of Eugene and Ethel here in Israel. While we were sitting around the table and when they finished learning Mishnayot, so one of our sons said, let everybody say something that he has learned from Eugene. So one of our sons who got married that year before the visit of Eugene and Ethel, he said that when Eugene spoke to him, blessed him on his wedding, he said, do you know how long a chatan is a king? As long as he treats his wife as a queen. That was one of his sayings. But I will finish saying something that I remember having learned from Eugene. Well, I learned it, I think we heard it on one of the Shabbatot when we were still in Baltimore. So I will say that in Hebrew. Eugene אמר על שיר המעלות, שאומרים לפני ברכת המזון, הזורעים בדמעה ברינה יקצור, הלוך ילך ובכו נושא משך הזרע, בוא יבוא ברינה נושא אלומותיו. אז ישנו הפירוש הקלאסי שהחלק הראשון מתייחס לשלב של הזריעה, הלוך ילך ובכו נושא משך הזרע, והחלק השני של הפסוק הולך לתוצאה, הזורעים בדמעה ברינה, בוא יבוא ברינה נושא אלומותיו. אבל יוג'ין אמר, הלוך ילך ובכו, מי שמעביר את החיים שלו בצער ובבכי ומתוך ראיית מה שחסר לו, נושא משך הזרע. הוא נשאר תמיד תקוע במקום של נושא משך הזרע. בוא יבוא ברינה, מי שמעביר את החיים שלו מתוך רינה, מתוך הסתכלות על החיוב, נושא אלומותיו. באמת, כשהיינו בחתונה של חנה, וזכינו גם להיות בשבע ברכות, בשבת שבע ברכות, וראינו ברוך השם את כל המשפחה היפה, ולחשוב על יוג'ין ועל אתל שכל החיים היו בבחינת בוא יבוא ברינה, וזכו ברוך השם לראות נושא אלומותיו, ושזאת תהיה הנחמה של אתל ושל המשפחה.
אני רוצה לספר סיפור קצר, ואני אגיד את זה בעברית, כדי get the flavor, כולם מבינים עברית. בספר, באירבוק, הפסוק שיש בשביל יוג'ין, זה הווה מקבל כל אדם סבר פנים יפות, וזה האיש. והסיפור שלנו הוא סיפור פשוט נפלא. ישבנו בחתונה, כמו איציק כבר עשה את האינטרודקשן, ישבנו בחתונה אצל אבלו, ועם אבלו אנחנו חברים טובים, שזה סיפור בפני עצמו, אבל לא נדבר את זה. פיטר אבלו. וישבנו סביב השולחן, והיו שם, אני חושב, 6-7 זוגות, לא הכרנו אף אחד. אבל כמו בנימוסים אמרנו, שלום, זה מיכאל, חנה, זה, מאיפה אתם? מבולטימור. אנחנו נוסעים לבולטימור, אני נוסע לשבתון לג'ונס הופקינס. לא ידענו אף אחד בבולטימור, לא הכרנו אף אחד, לא ידענו איך להתחיל בכלל לחפש דירה. אומר איצי, הנה זה האימייל שלו. כתבתי מייל ליוג'ין, ומאותו רגע יוג'ין עזר לנו, אבל בצורה שלא תאמן. זאת אומרת, הוא הלך לראות דירות בשבילנו, הלך פיזית, הוא הלך ולפעמים הלך עם אתל. אומר, זו דירה לא טובה, זו דירה לא כדאי לכם, זה לא כדאי. עד שהוא מצא לנו את הדירה, הוא אמר, זאת הדירה, כאן, מצא, בדק, הלך עוד פעם, חזר, בדק את כל הכלים, לראות שהכל נמצא, ושלום אמר, זה הדירה בשבילכם. עד כדי כך הקשר היה טוב איתו, שאני שלחתי את הצ'קים, את הדפוזיט, שלחתי אליו, והוא הלך עם זה, והוא הלך למשרד ונתן את זה. לא שלחתי את זה, ממש. וכשהגענו, הגעתי לפני חנה, כמה חודש לפניה, אז התארחתי אצלם, הוא אמר לי, אל תדאגו, אין לכם חברים פה, אני אדאג שיהיו לכם חברים. ומאז יש לנו חברים טובים, ממש חברים טובים, לסמן, לוינסטיין, ג'קובזון, כל אלה חברים ממש טובים, באים ארצה, הם באים אלינו. אנחנו נוסעים, יוג'ין היה פה, דיברנו איתו, הפסדנו שבוע לפני שהוא נפטר, רצינו לצלצל, והנכדה שלנו חזרה מחו"ל אחרי כמה חודשים, ופשוט ברח לנו, ואז הגיע המייל הזה שכבר אי אפשר לדבר איתו.
אבל דיברנו אותו כשהוא היה צרוד כבר, נורא.
היה קשה לו לדבר, דיברנו איתו, ובאמת הוא פתח בפנינו וקיבל אותנו, הכנסת אורחים, הווה מקבל כל אדם בסבר פנים יפות מה שכתוב, להתקיים בו, וחבל על דעתי.
גם היינו בחתונה של חנה גם.
כן, כמובן.
גם אחר כך נפגשנו איתם.
No, not really, but I lost contact with Eugene for many, many, many years. And then it started again when he came to you, and of course I got so excited. So I came to visit, and then my son moved up the block from him on Green Spring. So I came to visit twice, and it was like 50-some years hadn't passed by at all. I mean, we just knew each other right from shul, from his parents' shul, and it was really, really, really nice to come back. And sorry it ended so quickly. And when Yoni moved, I got so excited. I said, Yoni, he got a big sign and he got a big cake. What don't you do for Eugene, right? It was very nice. That we should only continue our friendship.
You're from Baltimore, aren't you?
Sure.
She's a Sabra. She lived in Baltimore interim years, right? Because you were born here.
I was born here.
Brothers Deitch, you guys want to labels the older?
I'll tell you, our contacts with my contacts with Gene was basically stopped after Baltimore. And for many years I didn't see him. I was in Baltimore a few years ago and I went to visit him. And we discussed, we took an old time.
You guys were at the bar mitzvah, Larry's bar mitzvah, you sang at the bar mitzvah.
Yeah, but that was, so when I went to Baltimore, I visited him, and we discussed old times, and we discussed whose voice was better, His voice was as clear as a bell. He had such a smooth, clear voice. But at that time it was really rasping, and they didn't say he doesn't sing anymore. He can't sing anymore, but he wasn't sick as far as I know. Unless he was.
No, he was diagnosed 2 years ago.
Okay, so maybe it was
He
something.
smoked.
It was okay, so he couldn't sing. And a lot of the things that we did have in common as high school boys. I really can't repeat you, but put me in a bed like.
We'll talk.
I mean,
We'll talk.
hot ride in cars to go to watch DC with the guys at night. And she was.
Were you involved in that Oldsmobile Day on the Jersey Turnpike?
No.
Let me tell you what these guys did.
We did other stuff.
5 cars are driving to New York. The Frolics, Blumenthal, or whatever. The last car was always Blumenthal in an Oldsmobile.
Right.
And the car before him would pay his toll. And tell the clerk, tell the guy he goes free because it's Oldsmobile Day. Oldsmobiles go through free. So all the way from Baltimore to New York, this guy's not paying tolls. He's going through free. They get to the Lincoln Tunnel, he don't pay nothing. And this guy drives right through, and the alarms and the cops, and they come and they arrest the guy, and the guy says, what's the matter, you guys crazy? It's Oldsmobile Day. I haven't paid a toll since Maryland. They were nice guys.
Wow, that's true.
Not everybody in TA was Rav Bobrovsky material. Rav Bobrovsky was the head shear, the shear of the oldest of the seniors.
Aaron Lichtenstein was in that shirt. Aaron
not
Feldman.
not everybody was of that caliber. And Gene Chosyogen Aleinu and I and several other gentlemen were put in what we call the bad boy classes of Krasner.
Been there.
What was it? Danny just walked out before.
Danny Hang, yeah.
What was his name? Last name?
Danny Haynes.
Hey. So what he said, the most
Rabbi Krasner was there when you were?
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
He must have just come.
he had just come,
He
Must have
just
just
come from Poland.
His English wasn't the best.
He came from Israel.
His
Wasn't
English,
20 years later either, man, he's
his
better.
English, it wasn't the best, but it was
Make
the worst.
dots, make dots, make dots, make dots. I used to tell you, make dots in the Gemara, make dots.
And they made a class, and Rav Krasner was the Rebbe. And he didn't understand us, and many of us didn't understand him. And there was
At least you didn't have that relationship with your parents.
and there was a custom in the class to, when they reciting the Gemara, to throw in all sorts of words that aren't in the Gemara. Words that on occasion cannot be repeated. And I reflect what Danny had said before, that I really can't say the most memorable.
We'll have to do
So
this
it's like all I
again.
can tell you, that if Rabbi Krasner, Allah Shalom, had a Havamina, that Gene's son would be a Yoni. It's the nice.
By the way, Rabbi Hyman's grandson lives down the street here.
Hyman?
I want you to know, I davened for the Yomid, and his father was here, Allah Shalom, he passed away about a month ago.
Shalom, best
A
way.
month and a
I was
half.
going to ask you to say something.
That's not just legal.
Kira. Is that Kira? You have a right?
Yeah.
So we have more room in the car.
So I davened for the Yomid Shabbos, and Mr.
Shalom was there?
Shalom was here, he just passed away about 2 months ago. He came over and said, "You're from Baltimore? Is it Fisher's here? I recognize your davening. Your father taught me davening in TA. My father evidently, when he got off the boat, they gave him a job in TA.
Really? Did you know that before?
I didn't know that. He learned
I
from
didn't know that either.
Liscottsville, huh?
I didn't know
That was
that.
before you were born?
Shalom's father was the treasurer.
Yeah, I just saw him in the yearbook.
TA. You want money,
I
you need
need
money and more money.
40 toys and dollars.
Yeah.
Chicken, children eat chicken.
Shimon.
Anybody,
I'll say something.
Ilana and my brother had a very special relationship.
There are two traits that I just want to talk about. Besides, we had a very, very close relationship overseas. Two things were very stood out. One of them is a bunch of people said Achnasat Orchim, that they had us unbelievable. We came to America one year with 3 kids, and we stayed at their house. And every time, I asked, "Oh, Eugene, can we use this?" He stopped me and he looks at me and goes, "Ilana, whatever is here is yours. Don't ask me. It's your house. Do whatever you want, whatever you need." I came another time on a business trip, and they opened their home, and it was something so special that I've never experienced, mamash, ever. And we had the zchut to return the Achnasat Orchim, and I think it was 3.5 or 4 years. The summer of Tzuk Eitan, the Motzei Shabbat that Tzuk Eitan broke out, they were at our house. We lived in the Jordan Valley in Shadmot Mechola, and we had Eugene and Ethel for Shabbat. My parents came as well, and they loved every part of Eretz Yisrael. And that Motzei Shabbat, that brings me to my the next trait that was very, very, very my uncle, was how everything that went on in Eretz Yisrael, in Israel, had such an impression on him. He would, when we were there during that week that we were in the States, he would wake up every morning and turn on Arutz Sheva, INN News, and watch on the internet what was going on in Israel. Before he opened up any newspaper or what happened in America, was what's going on in Israel, what's the news now. And that Motzei Shabbat, when Shabbat was over and we turned on the news and you saw on all over the internet the כוחות הגולן, אני חושבת הגולני נכנסו ראשוני. Golani went in and Visajia and that night he was beside himself. He couldn't think or do or manage anything else. His focus was totally on the Chayalim, on what was going on. And brings me a few years before when my sisters got married. It was during the Milchemet Lebanon Shniya, and they had arrived for my sister's wedding a couple days before. I guess 2 weeks before my sister got married. They came for a summer vacation.
For your other sister's wedding.
For the first one, and the first that they landed that morning. They rented a car and they came to Jerusalem. And it happened to be that morning was the morning that we got the Tzav Shmone. They called 3 o'clock in the morning. Phone rings, and my husband was called up, and the Nekudat Giyus in Yerushalayim, the Arza, by Geula over there was I went to take him there. We went to visit his grandfather in Bikur Cholim Hospital, and then we were walking down the street to get to the Nekudat Giyus, and all of a sudden I see Eugene and Ethel in a rented car driving up the street, and he pulls over in the middle of traffic. He pulls over. You notice Meir in uniform, and he stops the car and he goes, "What's going on?" He noticed already, and I think he benched him or something like that. He benched him and he gave him a hug. He had a special relationship with my husband as well. I said I used to be his favorite niece, and then I got married Meir, and he became the favorite nephew. And
Because he was in uniform when you married him. Didn't wait.
and I must say that at my wedding, I was talking about the music. One of the things that I was also at the schut that my uncle Eugene gave the bracha chona, our Sheva Brachot, at our wedding on our chuppah, and it was the first time he heard the Israeli version of the Asher Barak, and we have it on video. His face just lights up when everyone started singing the Sephardi version of the Asher Bara, and it became one of his favorite things about Israeli weddings, and just everything that happened in Eretz Yisrael was so important to him, and he was so proud of both of you, both Yoni and my father, for taking the step and making Aliyah. And he said to me, I could never do what your father did. I tried, I couldn't, ani lo hatzlachti. And he was very, very, very proud of both of you for making it and bringing your families to Eretz Yisrael and bringing up your families here. And yeah, I saw him, and I spent the Shabbos with Eugene and Ethel in November.
And the next night, when we spoke to Meir and they didn't give them food yet on the base.
The next night,
I took, my sisters were here in Eugene, and I took their credit cards, and we ordered like 20 pizzas from the pizza shop in Rosh Binah, and we had them shipped up to the base, and we catered dinner for Meir's blue guy.
too bad.
I'll say a couple of things.
Yeah.
Well, it's like
Leave that word out.
Yeah, there's a lot of words I'm gonna leave out.
So did I.
Yeah. It's almost like there's two Uncle Eugenes. I remember, when I was growing up, I was the only male fisher of my generation who wasn't one of Eugene's boys, right? So like there were 3 boys, Avi and Ari and Yoni, and then I'm 4 years younger.
In Baltimore, I mean, there
In
were 2 more.
Baltimore, yeah, I said, did I say Baltimore?
I don't recall.
Okay, in Baltimore. All in TA, and I was 4 years younger than Yoni. So there are a lot of times in my life that I've had to answer the question. I was like, "Oh, you're one of Eugene's?" No. If you would see me play basketball, you would see that I'm not one of those Fisher boys. I'm one of his brother's kids. Meaning the joke was, Avi, Ari, Yoni all came through, all ball players. And then they said, everybody was like, yeah, it's in the jeans. Then they saw me play and they're like, it's in jeans. But because I'm the only boy in my family, I was, my sisters will tell you that I was the favorite child, and I was, compliments.
Word.
Oh, Ellie did this, Ellie did that. Like I was like, put up on a pedestal for this. Uncle Eugene, dude Eugene, was very, very thrifty with any sorts of compliments. So I don't know if he was making up for it, if he was like trying to counterbalance something, but it was very, very difficult to get his affirmation or approval or accolades for any sort of achievement. It was like, okay, so you're a smart kid, fine, what are you gonna do with it? There's lots of smart kids in this world. And he never, like, it was very not forthcoming. I also remember, whenever we had a meal at Uncle Eugene's house, after my bar mitzvah, I led the mizumah. Whenever we had a meal, those Fishers had a meal at our house, it was usually Yoni that led the mizumah. Why? Because my father and Eugene had this long-running machlokas, right?
Me and Eugene had a machlokas?
So I'm saying, I'm gonna get into
Cows
the
have
broader thing, right? Whether,
Give the short version.
if it's an uncle, if somebody's leading, if somebody's is with a meal at someone's house with their father, they say Birshus Balabayas, Birshus Avimori, or Birshus Avimori, Birshus Balabayas, right?
What do you say, Steve?
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? The point is that they disagreed about this. So whenever somebody so my uncle Eugene always ended up being first because I agreed with my father that it should be Birshut Balabayid and then Birshut Avimori. So when I was at Eugene's house, it would Birshut Balabayid and then Birshut Avimori. But Yoni, who privately agrees with my father but couldn't do that in front of his father, always had to be Birshut Avimori, Birshut Balabayid. So Eugene was first, no matter what. But that was the nature of the machloket. It wasn't just enough to have the machloket. They had to bring it out. We always used to go there on Shmini Atzeres. Shmini Atzeres, every year. Meaning the first day, not Simchas Torah and Galus. Shmini Atzeres, we always ate there. Why? Because our family didn't eat in the sukkah on Shmini Atzeres. Eugene did eat in the sukkah on Shmini Atzeres. So he invited us over on that day so that we would all eat with him in the sukkah on Shmini Atzeres. Every single year. We would go to the Shmini Atzeres and we would sit in the sukkah. Right? Long running feuds like that. And this was like the fight. And this is sort of like the matrix that we grew up in. Trivial Pursuit games, whether or not, yeah, it was Martin Luther King. No, it was Martin Luther King Jr. It's not the same guy. Martin Luther King was Martin Luther King Jr.'s father. So I'm not going to give you the answer to that one. It's incorrect, right? And that kind of brotherly,
Love.
yeah, love. Yeah, we'll call it love. We'll call it love.
Competition is what it was.
It was brotherly competition. And listen, Lamaisa, when I think that was why when I was learning how to drive, that my father had Eugene take me around to drive, and I think that it was also the other way. Did you drive? No.
No.
Okay, never mind then.
Nobody taught it.
Because you needed that sort of adversarial. You needed that sort of adversarial relationship where, on one hand, there's a strong family bond. On the other hand, there's the ability to
He writes for
I write for a living.
Train the boat.
And I'm going to use a word that I don't use much in my writing. It's like, you need somebody that can kick you in the tachas every once in a while. And that was his, that's the word that I'll always remember him for. Tachas, pronounced that way. Tachas.
At Ilana's Sheva Brachas, Eugene made a comment referring to ruminants, chewing animals, as not having upper teeth. Of course, whatever Eugene says, I always try to say the opposite. I said, of course, ruminants have upper teeth. Now the truth is we're both right. They have upper molars, but they don't have upper incisors. I'm sure you You're aware of that.
Sure, you're both right.
Wait a minute. But ad kedei kach, that Eugene went with my son-in-law's brother down to the refek in Shadmot Mecholah and stuck his hand in the cow's mouth to check for teeth. Okay, and you know, he has molars, so we were both right, but we still argue about it. A couple weeks later, I found a picture, a comical picture on the internet of a cow with a big broad grin like a Cheshire cat. So I Googled it and sent it to Eugene, and it was the wallpaper on his computer screen, you know, a big smile on a cat, you know, with teeth. I mean, the fun was in the argument, not in who won and who lost, but, and I was right.
Right. So I was saying that the second half of it was that he had a very different kind of relationship with my kids. With my kids, it was a much softer, I don't remember him as being, like, he was rough. He was, you know, not easy to get him to smile. There were certain times that we would
Very
have.
easy for me.
I don't know what's wrong.
Because you're the favorite, we know that.
Yeah, you were the favorite. I was saying, we could carry on, like, I would say something, and he would say something sarcastic. And I would say something sarcastic back. We could go on for 5 minutes, just sarcasm until like, it was like, it wouldn't end. Like, neither of us would let the other one have a last word, and an entire conversation in the language of sarcasm, even if there's nobody else around, like, it was just,
That was a compliment. He was
yeah, he was sparring. It was
Correct.
intellectual, it was
Ellie-
exactly
and
what it
Ellie-
was.
and
It
Ellie,
was intellectual
this is
sparring.
Between you two, another
Yeah,
time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright,
So
anybody,
that's the-
Yoni,
yeah.
you wanna sum it up?
Well, first of all, thank you, Mary and Uncle Litzy, for, for hosting this. And of course, thank you everybody for coming. It's a tremendous it's continuously humbling since my father passed away to hear about him, because any person, you can spend your whole life talking about the depth and the complexity and the laughs and the tears and childhood. There's no end how infinite a person is mashpia. As a son, just to hear about my father, Zechron Uvracha, is I appreciate everyone coming out. I really do. I could sit here. I know everyone has to go and it's late. You know, just to hear about my father. Everyone's father is their hero. My father truly was my hero, and continues to be as I hear more about him. Just one little nakuda that I think, when Alana said, or I forgot who said, that he wasn't matzliach, and I said this at the Levaya, and my father came here in '83, and it was one of the hardest years of their life, and I say that he was matzliach, that I'm here. I take zero credit for me being here, having a family here. Forget about the yeshiva, bringing other American boys, and I know in my heart of hearts, my son, Baruch Hashem, serving in the army, was the greatest nachas for my father. I have another son, Baruch Hashem, who's in yeshiva, who's serving in the army in yeshiva. Also a tremendous nachas. So my father was very matzliach in bringing me here. I have no doubt that it's his chusin that I'm here right now. One nakuda that I could say about my father, I think, if I could say, the chvod for my father, because it's being mitzamtzem, it's being magbil, it's constricting who he was. But my father's love for the Jewish people. The stories you say about him caring about you. My father loved, and I believe Ellie, I don't know this, but I believe that my father was a genius in dealing with people. And I believe however he dealt with you is because he loved you and he knew that that's what you needed. And my proof to that is, as a child, and seeing Avi and Aryeh and myself and Bracha, and we're all so different. But one thing that he showed us, just like he showed, and I told this, I was talking to someone before, I said, you can't love your Jew in the neighborhood, and you can't respect the Jew in the neighborhood if he's different than you, if it doesn't start in your house. If in your house there isn't an achdus doesn't mean you're the same. And my family is a testimony to that. My father, as you say, it's a miracle. I was thinking as Zalman, when you were saying it's a miracle that that I'm a Rosh Yeshiva and I'm this and that. It's not a miracle because Derech Eretz Kadma LaTorah. And the respect for a person, the respect that my father had for us, the respect that my father had for every, what was that story that someone was saying about, he drove someone home when he didn't know, so he Mike Jeff, he drove him on the bus so you could focus on the fact, my father figured out how to get that there's no question maybe he enjoyed the ride, but he took care of a person, but that was a means to an end. The end game was somebody needed a ride, I'm going to get him there. What we all need, I don't have to say this, I don't have to give a speech what we all need, but we know what the Jewish people are missing out of everything, especially in Eretz Yisrael, because this is where the neshama of the Jewish people is. What we need is achdus, and achdus doesn't mean that I look like you and you look like me. It has nothing to do with achdus. Achdus is that so many people came to Shiva, and we were so surprised, and they said, me and your father disagreed. And they came to Shiva and said, but your father listened to me, and your father respected me as a person. That goes so far, and it goes so deep, that it's not a miracle that someone like my father could have. He would always say he has two rofei nefesh, two rofei basar, and two, he says, my two brothers who are doctors, and myself, my sister, who are rofei, nefesh. His pride of the diversity but you know where diversity comes from? Diversity comes from the value of every individual. When you look at every individual as so chashuv, and he didn't look at you and say, he didn't even know you. But that's classic my father. A Jew, we were told, I remember this, I want to tell you this, I remember this growing up. When you came to Baltimore, it wasn't and you know my father it was no, especially as a child, I couldn't disagree. There was no messing with my father, and I'm happy about it. I'm happy, Shema B'nit, now I'm proud that I had a father who had demands from me and wouldn't let me get away with anything. And I remember when the winter grads came, you become friendly with the children. You have, I'm just remembering it now. When you're a little kid and you're told that you have to become friendly with Hanan, and it's a big class, but why was I told? And it was hard. Hanan was wonderful, but I'm saying I didn't know who he was. And my father demanded from us, and demanded from me, there's a new boy in your class. You are machabed that new boy. That changed my life. That's an impression. I think that's something that obviously it's amazing to hear, and it's just amazing to hear that my father was just a regular person, but he was so not regular. He had I think it's kamayim panim lepanim. He cared so much about every person. He cared so much about the Jews. He cared so much, it pained. I had a certain nechama, we shared it with the family. It's strange to share it with everybody. There's a certain nechama that I had when my father passed away. You know what that was? That this world is olam hasheker. This world is a world of lies, and we all know that. It's sheker, it's called, Chazal call it that. It's an alma de shikra. The olam ha'emes. My father was an emes person. I think he had trouble in this world. I don't think he had a day where he had a menucha, because whether it was from the Arabs or whether it was from the Goyim, the Holocaust, from the government, whether it was the people just being, he couldn't handle it. He couldn't handle the fact. He just couldn't handle it, not because Chas v'Sholom My father, someone told me this, who told me this? Alan Guna told me. Goonie said with the card games that they used to say. They said they would sit there, this is my father. They say they would sit there and schmooze all night and have a great time together. Alan Guna told me this. They played card for almost 40, 50 years, I don't know how long it was. He says he never heard one Lashon Hara from my father about another person. My father, he could touch up a person, he could say, my father never judged, and he would tell us. So I say, I look around and I say, here, you all, everyone, you know, you never know a person. I'll just wrap up, I know it's late. All I could say is, I think I could just talk about myself, I can't talk about anybody else. I got a lot of work to do. I have a lot of work to do on myself. Hearing things about my father, because my father was somebody who was sharp as they come in his jokes. He could make somebody laugh. He could tell someone straight, tell them what it is. He could, right, he could love somebody. He was, I think of his name, I don't know, my last say his Hebrew name. I think of his name, right, Yaakov is the synthesis of, Avram is chesed, and Yitzchak is gvura. Avram is chesed, loving, and Yitzchak is strong. And they say Yaakov, this is my father's name, is Tiferes. Tiferes is the combination of chesed and gvura. It's love and it's strength. You know, and I think that my father, with Lahadam Chaim, my mother, who's everyone knows my mother's a very special person, but I think that I have a lot of work to do, because everything I do in Eretz Yisrael, anything I do in Chinuch with my children, is all because I had a father who was, I think that, just to touch a little bit, there's so much more to say of this, he was so loving, but he had such gevura to him. He had such gevura, he had such strength, but the strength came from love. The strength came from ahava, his emunah. I could go on forever. Anyway, thank you so much. And Miriam and Uncle Itzi, where's that Miriam? Miriam and Uncle Itzi, you know, I have no words. My father definitely was thankful that you both were here for me and are here for me and my family. And I thank each and every one of you. We should all, the goal of talking about a nifter is to learn from the nifter and to come away. If there's one thing we can come away, is to love more Jews, to not judge, to see the good in other people, to have achdus, because that's the bottom line. Like my brother said at the Levaya, that was my father's favorite pshat on Pesach. We should all say it in his name. The loy echad bilvad is amar aleinu l'chalasenu. The achdus that we need, and my father lived that. He lived that if one way we can just, you know, you never know, to look at another person and see what you have in common with him, not what you have not in common with him. And I guess his neshama should have an aliyah. It does, sitting around, let's say Shabbat, Motzei Shabbos in Eretz Yisrael, at your house, Uncle Itzi and Miriam, with your children. And Eli, I like what you were saying, and we could talk about it privately. But I do believe that my father knew you more than you think he knew you. I think he was giving you a message, because I know that my father was not a person who did anything without a calculation. He was not someone who did anything, and his cheshbon was, he was a smart man, my father, and he had a cheshbon with everything he did. And
And he was right.
yeah, whatever, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know on a personal, right. I'm just saying, my father had cheshbon for everybody and everything, and we should just share them together as smachot. It's a real nechama for me. I can't wait to tell my mother. Well, I have the pictures. I know as I look around, you know, I was just born. You know, they say that story. I'll end off with this story. They say the story of the Sasemes. I think one of the rebbes who became a rebbe when he was young, and the Hasidim asked him. They said, "How does it feel to be a rebbe?" So he said a story of people who were climbing the mountain. They were climbing this big mountain. It took them years to climb a mountain. and they finally got up to this mountain, and they're up there, and they finally made it to their destination, and they see this little kid running around. They said, "How did you get up here? We've been trekking and climbing. How did you get up here?" So the kid said, "I was born on the mountain. I was born on the mountain." And after my father passed away, my mom, I felt that way before my father passed away because I respected my father and I was very close to my father. But now even more, I feel like a nothing. I feel that everything I did, I feel I was born on the mountain. I feel that my father climbed his life. I have an easy life. I had an easy life. I continue because of the pain and because of the right, you know, as his close friends, anyone knows as a close friend, my father was in pain. He was in pain. It was hard for him. He had a tough, you said, he had the toughest growing up. And here, I was just born on the mountain. So it's very humbling for me to look, and I'm not making my father out to something as a gadol and a this and a, you know, we would say, just you see what one person can do. You see what one person, how long did you know my father? For 5 years already?
10.
What? 10 years. But I'm saying I heard about my father would speak, he would like the love you would think, and then you have other people here for 50 years. But it's the same thing. It's the same thing. The love he had to say, because you're a Jew, who he gets an email, who especially Eretz Yisrael. So I got to climb my mountain. You should all be zocha to be mechazik each other. And I have no words to thank you all for being here. And again, we should just take this to go further and to improve our lives. You know, we should all just make our lives better, and to whether it's whatever it might be. We all know kol echad yodea ma shehem tzrichim lasot. Family is the most important. That I know my father told us. Family, 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 family. Watching you, watching my father and you, and I think there's a picture or video, watching him sit next to you on my couch, laughing like little kids. That was all. It didn't matter whether you were arguing about the ruminants or arguing about balabais. That was all just it was just a external thing.
I think the question was, who said in a famous speech, "I have been to the mountaintop"? So it's like brings back what you were saying. That was the Martin Luther King or Martin Luther King Jr.
I gotta tell you,
Thank you very much.
I have had other functions and get-togethers. This was the first time ever that everybody I called and said, it was only when and where. There was one couple that said, "We have another engagement," and they canceled it, and they're here. It was not a havamina, it was not maybe, I could be, if not this. It was 100%, right from the get-go, and I've never seen that before. Thank you all, and again,
Wait a minute, party's not over yet.
Thank you,
Please
Miriam.
come for coffee and tea
Yeah.
and cheesecake.
Please, and thank you, Miriam,